I really hope you enjoy this video. Subscribe, like, and click the bell to be notified of more fantastic music content just like this. Welcome to the Need to Know Music Show with me, Ronan McManus, here on Switchbox TV. And today I'm joined by a singer-songwriter called Tim Arnold, who also known as the Soho Hobo. And this is going to be like a 7-hour special because I've been looking at all the stuff that you've done, Tim, and it is ridiculous the amount of things that you've crammed in. So we're going to try and keep it below a reasonable time, so we don't both grow long grey beards by the time this is over. But please welcome. Thanks for joining us, Tim Arnold. How you doing, mate?
I'm very well, Ronan. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Yes, and you? Yeah, good. I'm good. So.
It's always the same for me when someone says, "What do you do then?" And I just think, "Oh no."
How long have you got? Well, I've been looking at it. I mean, trying to where to start. Let's just start with this year and how you've been sort of navigating this really strange time for. Obviously, want to talk musically what's been going on, but personally also where have you been spending 2020 and how have you found it?
Yeah. Gosh, right in at the deep end. Well, I mean, I started this year, oddly, learning about social dreaming with my partner, who's an independent dream researcher. So I started off doing a weekend course in Amsterdam where you learn what it is to share dreams with other people. And then I released... I have a couple of different ways of releasing music. I've got my solo stuff as a singer and a performer. And then I've got a collaborative project, which is kind of classical.
Jonathan Hill, is that right?
Jonathan Hill, that's right, yeah. So we've been working on a project for about 3 or 4 years where we release a volume of classical music, which I write and he performs. So we that was what the beginning of the year was for me. It was, working with my partner Kate on understanding the relationship between dreams and music and art, and releasing this record, which she did the artwork for, that Jonathan played. This most beautiful violin playing.
It really is beautiful music. I mean, I've been listening to the latest one of this year. Yeah, the Constellations. Yeah, it's beautiful. This is volume 3, though, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, and beyond that, I thought, well, that's coming out in I think it was February, and so I'll probably spend the next 3 or 4 months finding interesting ways to combine dreaming with the live performance of the music and Kate's collage work, and then obviously. Then lockdowns happened, and those
ruined everything.
Well, I don't know if it ruined everything, but it I also had my next solo album planned. It is done, but then it's quite a big project, and I've been working on that for 4 years. That then had to stop. There's a film that goes with it too. So yeah, I was suddenly stuck thinking, well, I know, I'll just relax and surrender a little bit, which I think a lot of did, just surrender to the fact that I can't really do anything and it's not going to last forever, we thought. So I did surrender at first until things became difficult.
And then what did you feel like I think all of us had that sort of thing. Let's just sit it out and then get back to what we were going to be doing anyway. And then once that sort of became apparent that this wasn't going on anytime soon, the need to start to do something kicked in. Was that kind of what happened with you? What did you do?
Well, my situation was quite unique in that, my partner and I live in different. I live in London. She lives in East Sussex. She has 2 children, and that's been great because I get to go down there. She gets to come up here, but we had to make a decision where we were going to go and to be with each other. So the beginning of lockdown for me was like a kind of special treat of moving in with her and her kids and getting to know their dad. And so there was a magical bubble appeared out of nowhere. And it was very much like, right, we're all in this together now. And we were our own bubble from the beginning, support bubble, I suppose it's called, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there was a very beautiful introduction to the lockdown from that point of view, because I was getting to know, you know, her kids and also the world that they live in, which I don't see that much of because I'm in London most of the time. So and that's all near the South Downs in East Sussex. It was really beautiful and a lot of wild and nature, and obviously that what everybody felt was there were no aeroplanes and, you know, going through the skies, and it was birds singing and probably a little bit more freely than they were used to being able to sing. And I for the first couple of weeks, which just felt like this was an opportunity to just sort of discover a new life, and I did start writing about it from that point of view. So I started writing some songs that were inspired by family and being with people, and then through just too many Zoom calls, I wrote "Weird Now," which became the first single of this new album, and then, you know, my attention was drawn to government again in the same way it was when I started Save Soho, and I started getting a little bit cross.
the activist was reawoken.
Yes, I would say the dreamer was there 100% at the beginning of the year, and I think the activists have pretty much gone on holiday, but it soon came back, and you know, and I think one of the biggest things in the UK, and maybe in other countries, I don't know because I'm not there, but in the UK is the whole thing has been an incredible magnifying glass on top of you know, just how brutal our government is in terms of its understanding of human beings.
Yeah, I think it's there's been a kind of there was this kind of human spirit that kind of was awoken in everybody around the time, and when everyone was sort of clapping for the NHS and all that. There was
Yeah.
a real kind of wave of positivity that came from it. But I think there's certainly there was kind of almost a euphoria of gratitude and all that kind of stuff. But I think the grim reality of what's happened has kind of soon kind of kicked in, and certainly I think I mean, how did you react to the kind of, I know there's been a lot of deaths and a lot of sort of dark times. Did that really kind of hit home for you then?
The deaths of the NHS workers hit home for me because it appeared to be the you know, the people whose job it is to look after the rest of us weren't being looked after themselves, you know. So that was the bit that inspired me to write Change of System. That was really bad. I mean, you know, I've had death in my life and I've lost people that are really close to me and people that weren't close to me that influenced my life, you know. So you know, suffering is terrible, but death is a part of our life as well. And I think there's been a disproportionate kind of take on how important it is to focus on this whole situation, because of course there are people that could be alive that aren't because they couldn't get their meds, they couldn't get their appointments. I'm talking obviously about cancer patients, all sorts. As I've said, that yeah, it's the effect of all of this. So far, I'm not entirely sure why it's happening in the way that it's happening. You know, I'm not a COVID denier. I know people that have suffered very badly but then can't work again because of it. But I'm very curious about the way that our world leaders have decided to change societal behaviour, which has never happened before with any kind of illness, pandemic, endemic, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, my wife's a nurse, and Switchbox TV was kind of born out of a movement that I started called Artists for NHS, which was kind of, I found myself without any gigs overnight, and my wife was getting busier, so we decided to try to get the artistic community together to try to raise some money. We got together with the NHS charities together, official charities, arm of the NHS, and raising money and for the front line, and because the PPE and everything was that money came from us, not from us personally, but from the people.
Yeah,
And
it's exactly that's why I went from like the new album is very much there's two very clear themes in it. One of them is love, community, and family, and how important it is to be together and to be close, and not to be living our lives through screens, and this real bond that everybody finds out when they're not allowed to go out, just how important it is. We take it for granted. It's not until it's quite late in the day we realize just how important it is to be near to another human being, and that's one side of it. And then the other side of it is very much criticizing government, and in particular what you were just talking about, when you've got a government that suggests that we come out to clap for NHS workers, but they won't pay them properly. We've got a real problem. They won't pay them properly, but of course they've paid about £90 million to friends and associates that they've grown up with to create track and trace systems that haven't worked. So I've been locked between the two things: the beauty and the absolute ugliness of what we're all in the middle of. And there's a lot of beauty as well.
I think 2020 is summed up with that. I mean, we've seen the sort of like the beauty and the ugly side of human of the human experience. But I wanted to talk a bit about just to shift gear completely here. Wanted to talk a little bit about kind of how you got going in music, and you had I've come from a musical family myself, and music was always part of our house. So I know with your mum being a pop star and actress, and you had that traveling around life, and that must have been magical to see your mum performing. Did that sort of bug hit you very early? What was that childhood side of things like?
Well, I didn't know it. It did hit me early. You grow up with a mum that's singing and entertaining and kind of being adored by her fans and people around her. You sort of you pick something up, although I didn't notice it until I was much later, and it worked in a different way with me. I was I don't know if you remember Absolutely Fabulous, but I was a little bit like Safi with Edina. I was a goody two shoes kid that used to look at their mum and think she's completely mad. She's behaving inappropriately. Because my mother was just wild. So I was a bit like that until I was, I don't know, 14. Actually, really, when I left home. I came back to England to go to school and finish my education in the UK, because I was living in Spain with my mum. And it was only then that I really, I'd secretly been writing songs, but I didn't really share it with my mum. I think if you have a parent that's got a huge personality, you need to find your own space.
I know this. This is you're preaching to the converted here.
Right. Then if you grew up in a musical household, right? It's a hard thing to come into as an infant and make your mark. You've got to go and find your own space, I think. And for me, it was. I look back now, and I learned so much from my mum. In performance and in causing trouble and being an activist in lots of different ways. Really, it's a huge influence. I just did it in my own way.
Yeah, my dad was one of those people who go into the chemist and say, "Can I have a pack of plasters, please? He said, what colour? Can I get skin coloured?" And then he'd just say, "My friend's black," just to kind of just say there's only the white skin colour, just to cause trouble. It wasn't
brilliant.
Just to sort of go, yeah, this skin colour isn't, all that. It was all that kind of stuff. But that was my dad to a T.
Yeah, I mean, it's great having outspoken parents.
sort of the sort of a hippie sort of also kind of rebelling sort of side to it. But I mean, we certainly we learned how to perform and how to hold a crowd quite early on. What were your sort of early, what sort of age did you start singing and performing then? And did you what was that feeling like?
I never wanted to sing. I think when I was about 11 or 12, I was mostly into prog and a lot of instrumental stuff like, Mike Oldfield massively and Pink Floyd. And so I was playing keyboards a lot and writing poetry on the side. And I hadn't put the two together. I didn't think to put the two together. But I think really, I suppose when I came back to the UK and started getting into more contemporary bands like Pixies and Stone Roses, and then eventually Suede, and I thought I could do that. But when I started my first band, I didn't want to be the singer at all. I mean, I was singing a bit, but I didn't want to be a singer. I probably was like similar to what Noel Gallagher was when he started in Oasis. I just wanted to write great songs and be at the back and be able to hear them being played and sung by someone else.
Yeah, because that was that band Jocasta, was it? That was the first band you had.
Yeah, I started at school when I was, I don't know, I did my first gig when I was 17, and February the 12th, 1992, I think. That's I was 16, and that was you know, out in Hemel Hempstead, in the middle of Hertfordshire, and eventually just started playing gigs in London. And I got signed by Sony after we did 6 gigs. I mean, we were a really tight band. I was the youngest in the band. The rhythm section were older, so that was one thing I was so lucky on, that I suppose the quality of my songs for my age were quite good, but I attracted really, really professional musicians who were much better than I was, and could sort of bring out what I was writing in a more mature way than I would have been able to do on my own. So it was a good combo.
What was that school like? Because that's the Rudolf Steiner school you went to.
Oh, right.
I was trying to read a little bit about it, but it was a kind of not your average school, let's just say.
Yeah, it's gosh, I'm so lucky that I went. I was only there for 3 years. And I was asked to leave as well. I'd become a bit too rock and roll for it, but it's an extraordinary school. I mean, it is based on the ideas of one individual, Rudolf Steiner. He was one of these everything guys like Leonardo da Vinci. You know, he was a scientist, he was a poet, he was a mystic, he was a playwright, he was a musician, he was a child psychiatrist. There's a really, really amazing wealth of education in his work alone, and of course the schools were set up in his ideas about humankind, and mainly it's I think it's really to do with encouraging individualism more than anything else, and learning how individuals become something greater when they work together with other people. So, you know, there were sports, but there were not sports based on winning. There were sports based on the teamwork and the understanding,
cooperation and things like that.
Yeah, it was, you know, really beautiful, and not right for everyone, of course, but for me and the friends that I made there, who I'm still friends with, I think it was a really extraordinary school to go to. Originally, they really encouraged me to do my music when I was like 15 or 16. But like most things, I went far too rock and roll, and they said I had to make a decision between your band or the school, Tim. You can't do both now, because there were kids asleep at school who come to my gigs in the week, and they were sleeping on their desks, bless them. And they're like, "Where did you go last night?" "Well, we went to Tim's gig in London." And it's like,
oh, you were just being cursed by every teacher there, yeah, disrupting everything.
Yeah, I was enjoying the sort of pseudo Jim Morrison role that I was playing.
The Lizard King. So you were so if you ask a 16-year-old to choose between school or his band, I mean, Is there a choice? I don't know. I don't think there's a choice there.
I did. Some of the kids tried to do a petition to get me to stay, but yeah, I totally just I felt I felt that was what I was born to do, was to make music in some way, shape, or form, or have ideas and turn those ideas into musical beings, you know. And so it was a red rag to a bull when they said to me, you have to quit the band if you want to carry on at this school. And I did. I finished my A levels in another school and just. And I, you know, and to be fair, I got a record deal with the biggest record company in the world 18 months later. So I you know, I wasn't. I don't think it was wrong about the choice I made.
Make it sound, it just sounds so easy. Just walked out of school and got record deals. Like, that's crazy, really. I mean, how did they come about? How did they come about?
We worked very hard. I mean, I was gigging from, I suppose, 16 till I was 20, and we gigged a lot. And we not only did we gig a lot, but we rehearsed. We rehearsed like 9 to 5. There was a rehearsal room in North London somewhere that we'd all chipped in to rent as a place that we could always go to. So I think in the 6 months before that we signed to Sony, we grafted 5 days a week, almost like 9 to 5 every day, like it was, like we knew we were sort of building something that would explode, and it did, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, you know, it's a different art, isn't it? Now that when people talk about getting a record deal or doing something in music, it's a multi-choice. There wasn't then really if you were making indie rock music.
Absolutely. I mean, it was still the old traditional getting a record deal. Like, you'd imagine a big guy with a big fat cigar coming in saying you want to be a star kid and kind of signing a record deal and go.
we had one of those. He turned up in this. We were in our room that we have was in a crappy back end car park of Cricklewood, and I won't mention his name, but he's a very famous record company executive. But he came up in his chauffeur driven car, and he actually left his wallet on one of our guitar amps, and we all looked at it and thought, we're going to Soho later. Should we just take that, you know? Very, very honest, Andy. And he went running down the road going, sir, you forgot your wallet. And this was the guy that ended up offering us a record deal about 3 weeks later. Wow.
So you made the right choice.
Yeah.
May not sign you, had you nicked his credit cards. Yeah.
I mean, I talk about it, and it might sound blasé, but I mean, I think at 19, I felt like I was knocking down dominoes that I'd set up, a bit like in V for Vendetta. I thought this is what we're doing. We've written the songs, we've been working hard. The fans that we'd made on a sort of grassroots basis loved what we were doing, and we'd get buses from Hertfordshire into London to see us do a gig. So we had a lot of confidence, and we had a lot of people that believed in what we were doing. So I was always surprised that it didn't happen sooner. I don't know. Well, I don't know how it was like that. But.
Well, I mean, I didn't mean it to sound like I thought you just walked in, and I knew you must have worked hard at it. But I think it's testament to the way the business was. There was a route to things then. You put the work in, you did the certain gigs, you got into certain venues, and then you got spotted by certain people. And there doesn't seem to be that same sort of, there's no one route now, is there? I mean, everything's so scattered.
That's right. I mean, I think with everything, and it's going back to government and politics, again, I don't know many areas of life that aren't just completely governed or influenced by advertising and magnifying whatever it is that you're peddling or selling into something much larger and much bigger than what it really is. It seems like that in the music industry. You know, in the old days, I mean, when Bowie started, there would, of course, had been PR people that said, yeah, we need a story, you know. There's got to be a story around this song or this single. But now it's just, there's more creative work goes into the stories and the lifestyle attached to an artist or their work than there is with the work. I mean, we rehearsed with our instruments for 8 hours a day, like the Beatles, I suppose. We wanted to do the thing that Beatles did. But now I think people will be coming up with stories and ideas and marketing solutions. And that's where all the work is going a lot of the time, which I get because it's more competitive. I'm not sure if it's a great way to make art.
Well, I think like someone like Bowie, I mean, being a proper artist in every sense, and all the everything, there was no, it didn't have to hype him because he was already such an interesting character. I think just maybe there's not those same sort of those people aren't being recognised like they were, not being built up and supported, and that's something to be said for that.
Well, of course, in terms of the record companies, I mean, they haven't really invested money in development for I don't know.
No, exactly.
I think we were among that last lot in the 90s that got some. We didn't get that much development, but we got some. I don't think that exists anymore. I think you've got to do 95% of the work on your own before a record company will look at you. So that they're essentially just becoming a distributor. And giving a little bit more power to what you're doing already.
Yeah, I mean, A&R men used to have opinions and be able to spot potential. You know, that was the things, and you know, it's not the same business now. You have to have basically everything ready. Slap a barcode on it and put it out, and that's kind of.
I mean, it's exciting in many ways because there's so many different routes. I mean, you only had the one route then if you were in a band. So I think it's. There are positive sides to it. I'm just not sure what's in the last, I don't know, since I've been making music, was it about 23 years since my first album? So in that time, I feel sometimes, and this is with everyone I meet, whether they're in film or theatre or music, it's just music comes last. Listening comes last a lot.
What I like about looking over your body of work, and there is a lot of work, is that you seem to really cross art media. Sort of, there seems to be, you don't restrict yourself. And I think that's important in today's music because, I mean, the visuals are so much more important because everybody looks at things through their phone, discovers things through their phones, and visuals become so much more interesting, so much more important. Is that something that you purposely did, or is it something that kind of always came naturally? Because it seems like you've been an artist in the true sense since day one.
I guess so. I mean, I think I've learned a lot more with the visual medium in recent years because you have to, you know. It's Malcolm McLaren's prophecy came true. People will look before they listen. I mean, that was the Pistols. And if you can get them to look, they'll listen, but it doesn't work the other way around, unfortunately. So, I started making my own videos probably about 10 years ago regularly. And I mean, you can see my videos from in the last 10 years, and you can see it's somebody going training to learn how to my older brother is a video director, and when I was a kid he was making videos and short films and stuff, and you know, and he's made movies since. And so I had a good teacher in him. I wasn't in, you know, like picking it up entirely on my own, but yeah, I then really started to love it. I really love the way that certain images that have nothing to do with your song can be the best images to present the song and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, I looked to watch some of the visual presentation, like the live version of What Love Would Want with on the stage with Lindsay, with Lindsay Kemp. I mean, amazing. I mean, that's, you sort of feel like it's a live music video, isn't it?
That was, yeah. And actually, in all the couples that you see that were edited into that live performance, they were filmed on the same day, on the same stage as well. So it's one stage where, you know, we filmed all these loving couple backgrounds for, I don't know, 5 hours. And then we had a break, and I got changed, and we set the stage up, and then the audience came in, and we performed the song and recorded it, multi-track recorded it. So it was making a video and single in one day. If I could do that every time, that's how I would do it. I think now it's a nice model going forward to make most things live, because I think we've gone the other way around. You know, you're a musician. You know how the Beatles used to record records. You just got to get it right. There's a lot of rehearsing, and then a couple of takes. You know, and I think we've gone so far into, you know, there's the deep fake music will be the next thing, and it's just boring. Just being able to make everything perfect. I just want to hear someone dropping their sticks behind the kit. You know?
You used to love that sort of thing. We'd hear a drum stool squeaking, you know, or something. It's like you're keeping it in, you know.
Well, it's what you're doing then is you're recording a bunch of human beings doing something that they did once in a moment of time. So it's a similar thing as taking a snapshot, you know, a great photograph that you just go, wow, that you can't repeat that. So I'm probably going to go more in that direction in the future, I think, because I want to be surprised. And you just aren't when you've got your, you know, Logic Audio and your plugins and your this and that, and you're just kind of making it perfect. And then you go, God, if anybody had filmed that, it would have looked really boring.
But it's like what I think is you can also, it's not always just a visual that you can hear those moments, because I mean with my band this year we've been releasing our album song by song, and there's one song which is going to be the next single, which was our drummer who passed away 3 years ago, actually 3 years next week.
Wow, sorry.
But when we started recording the album, we went in just to jam, and it was the guitarist and the drummer, and I was just singing. And we just basically started improvising, captured this take, which we did one little edit on it, and other than that, it's as it is. And we tried to redo it. Nothing sounded half as good as that one take. And the producer absolutely hates us for it, because we just we gave him this hodgepodge of this take, and but the vibe on it, you could hear it couldn't be repeated. So we didn't try after a certain time. So right, we're going to work with this, and you can hear the vibe. We captured it.
Described something that Kevin Godley said to me, which is you've got to look for the God-given mistake.
Yeah, absolutely.
This wonderful mess that comes from somewhere divine, you know.
The drum part is complete all over the shop. It goes half time, it goes double time, it goes. But it's just something about it just worked, and it was only meant to be a recorded rehearsal or a recorded writing session, but it ended up on the album. And I think there's something to be said for that. And I think you've got a point there to say, having that, especially now that people are releasing single songs and single pieces of work, to record a video and a song in one day live like that, bang, and then put it out.
Yeah,
maybe that is the future.
That wasn't easy to do. What Love Would, it was the third What Love Would Want. But I mean, it was part of the Manchester Bridgewater Hall's education budget or whatever, and it was, you know, so it was like an arts council funded thing, but it took a day to do it all, the video and the song, but I think it was good 6 weeks of prep, you know. Well, it's
like any show, I suppose, any performance. You have to get it right on the day, and there's rehearsals beforehand, and then you capture it when it happens.
Yeah, and then if you've got someone like Lindsay Kemp, you know, for me, that's like you know, it was the same like with doing this stuff with Iggy Pop. I mean, if you're working with the kind of legendary status of someone, that for me, I mean, the pressure is enormous. You just think you can't get any of this wrong, otherwise you're getting something wrong in front of the guy that directed Ziggy Stardust at the Rainbow. You know, it's like it's but I think that also makes you try harder as well. It is good getting out of your comfort zone, you know, and just and getting into a situation that you're slightly impressed with yourself because you work double hard, you know. That's what
Absolutely.
I try to put myself in situations where I go, wow, how the hell did I get here? And I become a better version of myself, I think, 'cause you just work hard. Yeah.
Well, it's putting yourself on the spot and saying, right, sink or swim. And it's like,
Yeah,
you gotta,
it's good having, you know, like just, and also with a project what love would want, you're carrying just the love between all these ordinary people who have been extraordinary by being brave and saying, yeah, we want our relationship to be on camera for a couple of seconds in your video, you know. So that's like, you're carrying stuff. So I think, if, you know, for like independent artists, if you're the guy coming up with your own ideas, you know, you haven't got like some team around you of people telling you what you should do, I think it's really nice to work with responsibility, you know, where you're responsible for other people's feelings and beliefs. That's what that project's about mainly, for me.
well, I think empathy is one of the lost things in today's society. It's one of the most important things one of the most important parts of the human
Yeah.
uh, one of the human experience, and I think it's lost a lot into today. I mean, having empathy for other people's situations, but the song carries an important message of gender equality, of anti-homophobia, anti-transphobia, all that kind of that has been taken. It's taken on a life of its own, hasn't it? And it's in that way that song is going to become a real sort of flag bearer for all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's all of those issues, but also just like the futility of labels and just getting back to like there's only one thing really, and that's we're just human. You know, black, white, straight, tall, short, you know, men, women. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got this so much in common. We all dream, we all sleep, we all eat, and we all need love, and we all need attention, and we need approval. And this, and we need to look at these is the things that makes us, you know. So the idea of that singing he for she and she for he, it's like, you know, it's a very wry kind of, what do you mean he and she? Who cares? You know, what's for dinner? What are we going to eat? And I don't care who's at the table as long as we all have a good time. You know, I'm aware that I grew up, you know, with a gay mom, and so grew up a bit in a theatre. So everyone's just with each other and they all love each other. That's a kind of, I know that most life isn't like that. But it's a great starter, I think. And it's and that's why, even if, you know, when you're young, if you're not particularly into the performing arts or anything like that, it's a great thing to just chuck yourself in just to see how they all get on, because they all muddle along, no matter who they are, where they've come from.
Was it tough coming out of straight?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Coming out. Yeah, I came out as straight. No, I'm not at all. I mean, I think I take after my mum, you know, I'm attracted to women. So we have a lot in common.
No, I was of course being facetious, but
yeah, I mean, I think that I've got a few straight friends who've got you know, parents that are gay, and I think really it's quite normal that. Yeah, I think there's an old-fashioned idea, isn't there, that gay people will have gay children. It's all this sort of. It doesn't work like that.
Well, no, it doesn't work the other way around. So why should it work that way around? You know, so.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think we are, you know, we're souls, aren't we? And there's part of us that just arrives when we're born. I believe that. I don't think it's all nurture. There's a nature that is innate in all of us that makes us what we are.
100%, yeah. Well, I want to talk about the Save Soho stuff, because that kind of ties in with, there's obviously a big artistic and a massive gay part of London. It's a huge kind of bohemian, kind of cool. It's just Soho just embodies everything that's kind of great about London, or the kind of weird and wonderful. Tell us a little bit about the sort of camp, the Soho Hobo.
How did that happen? So I've lived in Soho on and off for over 20 years. This is the longest time I've not lived in Soho. I think I might have cracked it now. I moved there because I was going to go to art school to St Martin's, and so I lived right next to St Martin's, but then ended up getting a record deal with Jocasta. So I never went to art school, but I stayed in Soho. And you know, it is in many ways, even though it's like, oh, well, the celebrities go and the actors after work and all the rock stars doing their photo shoots and designers scribbling like Alexander McQueen, their next design on a napkin or something in a cafe. There are extraordinary people there, but it's also really ordinary, just like any other village. I really say that from someone who lived there mostly on housing benefit and signing on for 15 years. I was really taken care of by a lot of people, you know, in that community. And there is the tailor and the baker and the candlestick maker, they're all there. And what was wonderful about Soho that I loved was that they weren't into trying to make loads of money. They had their little shop and their business and their family that run it for the last half a century or whatever it was. And that was enough. And they had their holidays once a year, but they liked doing their job, you know. They weren't trying to expand or turn into, what's it called? Franchises. They just like their Bar Italia or their whatever it was, you know. And I really loved that because I like to feel that you know somewhere. You can keep going back there and it's suddenly not, you know, it's not moved or they've built another 5 or 6 replicas in other cities or towns, you know. It's what it is. And I really liked that. And then, of course, they started knocking down a lot of those businesses. When I say they, I mean, it's like a magical they. It's just development. Property developers and local council and Westminster Tories as usual, just kind of seeing the bigger picture and bringing people with bigger wallets into our country and into the capital of our country and spending more money. How can we do that? Well, we need to knock these places down and build that instead, you know. And I lived in that for 20 years, but it's only when they started doing it to the music venues that I obviously became very personal to me because I've been independent for whatever 20 albums and I never get to tour. I can't afford to tour. You need, as you know, it's thousands of thousands. I can't tour. I don't drive, so you know, I'm lucky when I get sent away somewhere to do a gig. It's the most exciting thing. They asked me, the NHS nurses asked me to come up and do that song in Liverpool.
Yes.
Stuff. I'm there. Come on, let's go. You know, because it's just normal for me to gig in Soho. I don't go anywhere else. And that whole scene was destroyed. Just like literally overnight, all the venues went, and I was invited on a march for Madame Jojo's, and I think it was only because I wore a white suit and had a white flower that the press just picked up on me. I don't think they knew who I was or anything. They just they picked on me. I had a stocking around my arm, like a black band, but it was a stocking, and that's sort of where the campaign began, and my relationship with landlords and property developers in Soho sort of went down the toilet. I became public enemy number one, especially when I got in touch with people like Stephen Fry and Benedict Cumberbatch to see if they'd help me.
Yeah, and they did. They got kind of involved in it, and I've seen the video is just brilliant. To what was it, the Piccadilly? What's it called? The Piccadilly Trot.
Piccadilly Trot.
Yeah, just it's amazing the joy in everyone's faces of watching it, filming it.
Yeah, I think to put it in context, when you said the Soho Hobo, I am known in some places as the Soho Hobo because before the campaign to try to rescue bits of Soho. I've been doing these songs for 4 years under the name the Soho Hobo, because I don't know, I wanted to give Tim Arnold a break. But yeah, it was funny just doing like they were really celebrating the community, celebrating the history, celebrating the different styles of music. That was the album that I was working on, the Soho Hobo album. And then that whole cultural threat happened, and I sort of paused the album for a little bit. Oh, have you gone?
I thought it froze. It froze a bit there. I think there was a bit of a glitch, but it's cool.
Oh.
It's cool. I'll carry on. But yeah, the Don't Go Changing Soho thing was great because you had some great names on it. But well, obviously Chrissie Hynde, but I actually picked. I noticed Emily Capel was in there.
Yeah.
And how great is she? I know there's some bigger names as such people would pick out, but for me, I think she's such a brilliant talent.
Yeah, Emily's amazing, and she's an incredible individual, got a lot of character, and was so important for the film that we did. Soho Is. Have you seen the documentary?
I haven't seen that yet. No, it was on my. I was trying to watch as much as I could of you, but I think I would have needed another 2 years to get through everything that you've done. But
no, it's good. It's good that we've met, and I have got your stuff to get through as well. You know, you have to send me some of yours. But Emily was really important because, of course, like if you're in your 40s or older, you're going to have a lot to say about Soho and why it's valuable. Less so for people in their 20s. So for Emily to come along and represent her generation and say, actually, we're here. You know, there are youngsters that want to hang out down alleyways, outside gigs at 2 o'clock in the morning and getting to know people and forging relationships and talking about art and history. And she's, you know, that is her. That's what she's. I think she could have emerged out of Soho in any of the last 5 or 6 decades. I really think she's an extraordinary artist, and yeah, she's kind of a mate as well now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, her music is a real melting pot of different styles and stuff as well, isn't it? So it's just you can see how it's a good fit for Soho being very much the same in the same vibe.
Oh, she's great. I love Emily.
So it's going to be tough to ask you for a career highlight, but we didn't even get on to talking about your time at the monastery, or when you went over there to got clean from drug addiction, and recorded an extraordinary album over there. And listening to it, I mean, then you did an album in Spanish, and you released like 7 albums in less than 2 years. I mean, if we talked about everything in depth, I think this would be a 2-week show. But it's been such an amazing career. Could you pick out a couple of highlights along the way people could things that people could check out about you that you're really proud of?
What you mentioned already, what love would want, because it's an ongoing project. It's I think it's a massive deal for me because it's one song that will continue to be remade and reinvented and re-recorded in different ways for as long as I can. So that, I think, what love would want. There's a page on my website called What Love Would Want with the 3 versions of the song and all the information about it. And I think that's probably, you know, if I had a nasty accident tomorrow, I'd be pleased that I did that beforehand.
Well, I think it's a sad indictment that, unfortunately, that the issue is still an issue. It's a sad indictment on society that it should be still relevant. You feel like it's still going to be things coming up, especially in America, possibly in the next few years, where they could be going backwards in terms of gender equality and that kind of thing. So you sort of feel like it's likely to be relevant, unfortunately, for a long time, and it's going to look likely to be an important message still going forward.
Yeah, and I think that's a friend of mine in Canada reminded me of what you've just said, actually, when I started that project. And I remember saying at the time, but there's so many, it's like preaching to the converted. And she said, yeah, well, it might not always be there for preaching to the converted. There might be to come a time where a lot and we realized that with What Love Would Want with Chechnya. I met some Chechen refugees, gay Chechen refugees at the Russian embassy who were protesting with us. And, and they were grateful that some whatever guy in London had been writing a song about it. So, yeah, I think those are the things. There's always a point to something. If you feel it, if you really feel it, and that other people might be saying, there's no point in you doing that. Why are you doing? I just think if it's meant to be, you've got to follow it through and do the best job you can do with it.
And that could really mean the world to somebody who's going through that on a day-to-day basis, and to feel like there's someone else out there that's putting this into words and giving it a kind of encapsulating it in a song. That can be such an important role to play.
Yeah, even though at the moment, songs aren't, music isn't at platform that it was when Lennon wrote Imagine, and I don't think it has. They've done something to it somehow, but I think it will come back again. Bowie said it very succinctly in 2001, I think, in the Jeremy Paxman interview, and he said, if I was starting out today, I wouldn't have chosen music. He chose music to affect change at a time when it was absolutely there for that. And I believe in it being cyclical anyway. So I chose it for the same reason Bowie did. But I've ended up getting to my age and noticing that it's not the power that it could be yet. But I hope I'll live long enough to see it come back round again to where music affects change in the world massively again.
So what's next for you? I know it's hard to predict anything right now because of the world that we now live in seems to be going day to day, even hour to hour. But the plans, the new album you've spoken about already. When are we likely to hear some of the new solo album stuff?
Yeah, well, the next solo album, because there's so many different. I'm always in a different stage of. When I'm finishing one, there's another one that's been written or something like that. So I'm sort of like a walking factory with no sensible manager in charge. The current record, When Staying Alive's the Latest Craze, that's out it's out next week. And I guess we all have to look at what's going on with the climate, with not the actual climate, the climate of the music industry, and what we can do. I've managed to do 6 gigs on lockdown so far, socially distanced, COVID secure venues, and they've been beautiful. And I might be about to find out that the next one will be cancelled because of the next lockdown. I don't know yet. So I have been quite, when someone says you can't make music and you can't gig and you can't do this, I generally have 2 words for that kind of person.
I think I can guess them. Yeah.
Yeah. So most of my behaviour has looked a bit like those 2 words lately. I'm lucky. I've been outside of the traditional industry, and I've always tried to do gigs and events and projects in different, unusual spaces anyway. So I don't have a traditional method of making music, which used to be. I think it held me back. At the moment, it's kind of a superpower. I've got my strange little world that I've operated in. And I've managed to keep going, I suppose, but it's hard, and I think it's going to get harder. I will next year. There will be another album and a whole sort of a project that goes along with it, but I just don't know how it will find its people yet. So because of I think meeting people face to face is such an important part of what we do as musicians. I don't believe screens and streaming shows are the future tool of music.
Well, I mean, I think they're going to be an essential part for the short term. Unfortunately, they're going to be part of our lives, and maybe the only way that we can get art out there and embracing this. You talked about a film going with the new album, there being a film, maybe like embracing the visual and the audio at the same time could be something important.
Yeah, and I'd say that to any artists that I'm generally just kind of performers and or recording artists. There is a joy that I find in spending, I don't know, 14 hours a day for a week editing and working on video in a dark room on my own, and that's helped a lot on with the first lockdown. I mean, this new album is. I wrote a song, I recorded it, and then made a video pretty much within the same day, 2 days, whatever. And I think that's helped me enormously. It helped with my mental health, emotional health, and there's been some real moments of hell in that regard for me. And I think it's really great to have as many colors in your palette as you can get when you're a musician, because if you've only got one way of doing it, and it's your heart, you know, it's tough then if you can't do that well, you can't do a gig, and that's the main thing you do.
Well, I think that any sort of aspiring artist, you're a good model of someone to look at, because you've been doing the sort of self-releasing, self-expression, and didn't seem to have put many boundaries on yourself or too many barriers in the way. You've kind of let yourself do whatever you want to do, and it's such a diverse career that you can be really proud of. And I think it's something that any aspiring artist would be. Right now, it seems like that's the way that we all have to do it now. You've been doing that for years, and that's quite interesting that it's come round to, you know, have to do that now. We're going to have to find our audience and find ways to do that in our own way.
Yeah, and finding a balance as well between what your personal reward is with music, because you know nobody just does it for the money or the fame or any of that. We're doing it because of some other really unique gift that comes to us personally. So finding the balance between that and what it means to anybody else. You know, I think that's really, I've been able to compartmentalize those things through ups and downs, you know, some successes, some not successes, you know, having going between the two for a long time, it's been useful because it makes you understand why you do what you do. And I think shut and stop listening to what the rest of the world is doing and telling you should do. Yeah.
Well, we always ask for a recommendation on the show. So is there an artist that you would recommend? We've already mentioned Emily Capel. We should definitely check her out.
Well, Emily Capel or Emily Capel. I'm not sure. I think it's Emily.
Is it? I don't know. I went with Capel. Maybe you're right.
She'll be thrilled that we've talked about her, regardless of how we pronounce her name. I'm sure. But, I don't know. No. Emily for sure, but another artist like that has to be contemporary, alive sort of thing, or
it can either be someone that you know now that people should check out, or somebody that's influenced you over the years, or somebody you think maybe it's just basically someone that people need to know.
I think Kevin Godley. I think what's remarkable is that Kevin Godley, if anybody doesn't know, is the drummer and one of the songwriters and members of the band 10cc. There's a seminal 70s art rock band of outrageous musicianship, but he became a video director as well. So a part of my making music and videos might be, you know, partially influenced by working with him and getting to know him. He's just released his first solo album ever, and
wow,
yeah, and he's you know, he's been making music since the 60s and had his number ones in the 70s and the 80s, and he's only just released his first solo record, and it's amazing, and it's so now, and it's so part of what we're all going through. And I would recommend listen. He's a master at what he does, and very witty, and from that world, really. He's not that far away from that Beatles world, and he's worked with Paul McCartney as well. Extraordinary human being with an amazing mind. I think listen to Kevin Godley's new album. I think it's called Muscle Memory.
We'll put a link to that. And where's the best place for people to keep in touch with your journey? Because you're still, journey sounds such a pretentious word, but it really is in your case. I think it's fitting. I
guess the place to be with me up to date will be Twitter, and Facebook a bit, but not so much. I find it doesn't seem to. It used to work for me, but it works sometimes. But Twitter, I feel much more able just to kind of say what I'm doing now. So at Tim Arnold, and then my website timarnold.co.uk. There's all the stuff will be on there. For the actual music, though, I'm just releasing through Bandcamp now. I'm not putting my new album on Spotify. Yeah, I mean, it's a great resource, Bandcamp. I mean, I've just discovered so many people, but you do get lost in it for hours. Unfortunately, you do lose entire days on Bandcamp. But it's music, so I think that's all right to get lost in that. You know. Absolutely, it's a very worthy, noble pursuit. Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah. Thanks for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I think I know it's been a long one, but we may have to go out in two parts this one. But we didn't even touch on half the stuff you've done, so it really is. It's been an absolute pleasure to take a deeper dive into your stuff and to learn more about you. And thank you. You do. I mean it. I love to hear the stuff that you've been working on and know more about the NHS project as well, because I feel really strongly about it. Fantastic. Well, let's keep in touch, and we'll talk again. But Great. Thank you, Tim. Thanks so much. Good luck with everything next year, and hopefully we can get back to some sort of normality and some sort of normal way of doing things. But until then, just keep being you. Keep doing what you do. Totally. Yeah. You too. Keep dreaming.